Howdy, folks. I'm Mark, and today I am joined by Matthew Pilkington. Matthew, thank you for joining me for this short talk about video games.
Happy to be here, Mark.
Oh, wonderful. And you are listening to Quick Play, so let's get right into it. Matthew, I'm going to start you off with a trivia question.
Okay.
What is the first video game?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm gonna go with. I know it's not this, but I'm going with Pong because I'm blanking right now. Wasn't it like a defender type game? I don't remember the
Yes,
name of it, but
called
it was.
Spacewar with an
There it was. I
exclamation
was like, it
point.
was a defender type game, but I couldn't
Right.
remember the name of it. So
Yes. So I bring that up to say that fightin has been a part of video games from the very beginning, with Spacewar in the title. So we're here to talk about the best fightin, which there are. I started thinking about this. You see the question that's the title episode. What's the best combat system? There's a lot of different options we can go here, but we can start simple. Matthew, just your gut reaction. What is the best combat system in video games?
I was thinking about this because you posed this question to me, and when you say combat system, immediately I'm thinking like specific games, but then I'm like, well, are we talking games or genres here? You
Sure.
know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it depends on the genre. But I'm gonna say that because fighting games are the king of combat systems, as far as I'm concerned, and my favorite fighting game is Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. So I'm going to say that is
Nice.
the
Okay.
best combat system out there. It is simple, it is straightforward, but it is deep, and truly one of the greats.
Nice. Yeah, it's a great pick. I was thinking about this because like I had in mind of like, oh yeah, like combat in like action adventure games. Then you realize like, oh, there's a whole genre that's about the combat itself. So it's kind of hard to get past of like, oh yeah, of course, fighting games have the best
Right.
combat systems. Like you can kind of devote all the buttons to the fighting. Third Strike, is that on Super Nintendo or is that a PlayStation 1 game?
That one came out in that was originally PlayStation, I believe.
Okay.
It's on most everything now because of all
Right.
the Capcom fighting game collections and things like that. But it's actually the third iteration of Street Fighter 3. You know how Street Fighter always does like Street Fighter Turbo, Street Fighter Ultimate Championship Edition, whatever it might be, right? Third Strike is actually the third iteration of that particular game in the Street Fighter series.
Okay.
And by far the best of the versions.
I have a healthy respect for the Street Fighter series, and every time I hear more, it's like, how many different versions of all these games are
Right?
there? What's going on?
There's too many. It's too many to keep track of.
It's like there's 6 of them. Okay, but there's also a lot more than 6. There's
there's also the extra, 30 or 40 if you want to add spin-offs and and iterations and whatnot.
Nice. What is it specifically about Street Fighter 3 Third Strike that gets you? Why that one above other Street Fighters, other fighting games?
So part of it's nostalgia. It was a game that my friends and I played just endlessly for several years. We would, get together maybe three or four nights a week. This was back in, high school, right? So we had a lot of time. We'd get together 3 or 4 nights a week and we would just play for a couple hours, just round robin style, winner stays on, loser hops in, and we would just go for, hours. And it's got a really deep combat system. It introduces some like parry mechanics that are pretty infamous in a lot of fighting games these days, and just in combat in general. Parry's the big it's the big hotness right now. But
yes,
Street Fighter 3 Third Strike had a really in-depth combat system that involved parries, both air parries, ground parries, and I don't know if you've seen this clip. Many people have. I believe it's Evo Moment 37.
Okay, yes, I was about to
Yeah,
ask about it. Like, there's some weird, very specific name
yeah.
for it. I
I think
couldn't
they call
remember.
it Evo Moment 37, if I
Yeah,
recall correctly. I may be getting that number
sure.
wrong, but it's a famous clip from the Evo fighting game tournament, right? That they still host every year,
Yeah,
both in Japan and America and elsewhere. And it's, it shows off a scene from a really close match, right, in a round of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, in which one player parries something like 20 plus rapid fire punches in a row
yeah,
to block an enemy's, to block his opponent's super move, and then takes
yeah,
him out and wins the round. It's just, it's a game of wild swings where, one player can be completely up against, the wall, and, a few lucky, connects, and
yeah.
it's swings the other way. It's just
Right.
it's a cool game to play, and it's got so many highs and lows that keep me coming back to it.
Nice. Have you been keeping up with Street Fighter overall? Like, been playing each
I
entry?
dabble in most of the entries
Yeah,
these days. My reflexes are nothing, man. I'm too old now. That's the problem
yeah,
with fighting games. So I will dabble for, a couple dozen hours in every entry. A little more here, a little more there, depending on which game it is.
yeah.
I haven't played a ton of Street Fighter 6, but I've heard good things.
Nice. I I have such an admiration for fighting games, but I just don't have the patience for them, which is like, it feels like I just don't want to memorize combos and stuff. I
Yeah,
love Super Smash Brothers. Um, and like that Super Smash Bros. Has just been in my life, kind of like there's been a Smash Bros. Game for each station of life.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's like, even that of like, I don't want to have to worry about like all the metadata and stuff. Just let me
Yeah.
play as all my guys. Um, and then, but it feels like fighting games are much more demanding. You typically of like, now you gotta know these characters, you gotta dig
Mm-hmm.
in. I spent some time playing Injustice in college and got into that a little bit. Um, Street Fighter feels like one I could get into if I were to get into one, but I don't know. It's actually Marvel vs. Capcom is probably up my alley. I should probably check
Yeah,
that out
yeah.
at some point. But that's really like I struggle with just all the memorization of stuff, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why I like Smash Brothers too. It's like it's much more simple.
But I mean, there's people out there, that would argue that Smash is one of the deepest fighting games out there. I mean, the competitive scene in
Sure.
that game
Yeah.
is crazy. It could have
Yes.
been easily a pick for, best combat systems. But
Yes.
so the fighting games, right? That's my pick. But what about you? Like, where were you at when
Yeah.
you were thinking this conversation up?
The way I would answer the question was that I was thinking through this was I picked out Arkham Asylum,
Oh,
being like,
nice.
because that was really the first time I played a game, and I remember like playing it in a kiosk in GameStop. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
was just that 360 setup. Like, oh, there's a new Batman game, and like it just kind of clicking. Like, this is the first time that punching dudes feels real good. Like,
Right.
I've really noticed it's the impact that they get in there, and just like the flow of it is really nice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the Batman games particularly, and then the Spider-Man 2018 Spider-Man games are kind of
Yeah.
like the pinnacle of that. Of it kind of does so much for you, where it's like, just keep mashing the X button and you'll keep doing something cooler, counter at the right time, and you'll flow right into it. You can like throw in a few gadgets and stuff, do a stun move if you want to, but if you can kind of get into this flow state, it's like a lot of the work is done for you, and you just feel real cool doing it.
Yeah.
Um, and plus, it just like Batman being an established character kind of
Mm-hmm.
works in its favor. It's like, yeah, you feel like Batman, you Spider-Man, you feel like Spider-Man, and you kind of do all these acrobatics and stuff, and it feels good. Like, and
It was
that's
huge too.
yeah,
I mean, the influence that it's had just on that genre in general, of the sort of adventure action games and the combat systems. Like, pretty much every 3D,
yes,
adventure action game these days follows off of the Arkham games, which were hugely influential, and for good reason. I mean, like you said, that those games hold up today. I've never been the biggest fan of the superhero action games. I always kind of played like the Devil May Cries and the Bayonettas. Like that was probably my backup pick, was like one of the Bayonetta games, which I think are some of the best character action games out there. But I was thinking about the Arkham games, and I'm like, I've put a couple hours into each of those just to because they're kind of just fun to jump into and just start mashing. When you just kind of want to get in there and feel like you've got a handle on a combat system without having to spend your entire evening a week trying to learn the ins and outs like you would in like a fighting game or a really deep Ninja Gaiden, Devil May Cry, something like that. Like those, but they offer that for people that want to. If you want to dive in, you can really get into the nitty gritty and go whole hog on those Arkham games.
It's funny thinking of like this next Lego Batman movie. I'm sorry, this next Lego Batman game is kind of shaping up to be like the next best version of that from a Lego game, which is also, those are typically, you just mash a button over and over again and does the work for you. But in a much simpler sense.
Yeah, we need it. Rocksteady's been in, rough. They've been in rough waters for a bit now. So, looking forward to that Lego Batman game. I think it's going to be kind of a jam.
Yeah, it looks so like they're just playing the hits of these Arkham games, and I think that will work great for it. With these character action games too, I really haven't dug into much, but I love Hi-Fi Rush, and that's also a very unique combat system, being synced up to the beat of the music and stuff, and that adds a really fun layer. But that was really actually the first like character action I've played, where you're learning these combos. It's more third person like action beat 'em up with a lot more depth than you expect it to have. But you can kind of get deep into the tech of it too.
Yeah, that game's great. That, and then another one that I think of that is in a similar vein. It's not rhythm based, but it's got a similar kind of flow state. Is Sifu. I don't know if you ever played that. But
I haven't played it. But it's on.
It's, I believe, a French studio. But it's you basically play out Chinese action film, action star combat. It's pretty fantastic game. Hard as nails, but really good combat.
That's sitting on some, I'd say, on my Steam Deck through Epic. That was a free one at one point, so I want to try it out.
Yeah. If you like Hi-Fi Rush, I think you should put, if you don't have it on your radar already, there's a game coming out in a few months, I think, maybe next month, called Dead as Disco. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I watched that Triple I stuff last week.
Yeah, that's right. It was at the Initiative. Yeah, that one's definitely on my radar as a fan of Hi-Fi Rush.
Nice. Are you deep into like kind of FromSoft, Soulsborne games at all? Or
I've played pretty much all of them. For the most part, I'm a big fan of this series. I'm actually going back and playing their Kingsfield games right now, the old PlayStation, like where they, their old dungeon crawling, first person adventure games from the PlayStation era.
Nice. How do you feel like? I mean, combat's such a huge part of that. How do you feel like that kind of ranks amongst combat systems? Like sometimes it seems like it's unwieldy on purpose, but I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
I think it's interesting because it's hard to talk about From Software and their combat, even just within the Souls games themselves, because each game, iterates in ways that are always, make them feel pretty unique, even when the hits are the hits, but there's enough variety to keep those interesting. I think that they are. If we're talking greatest combat systems, I don't know that I put them up there. I love them, right? I love the weight to them, which we were talking, early about Arkham, the weight of the impact of hits, right? When Batman lands a punch, that's one of the most satisfying things in the Souls games, is that there's a good reaction, right? Both to hitting and getting hit in those games where it just feels good, right? Even when you take a hit, it feels good, which is something that a lot of action games lack, right? They lack that heft, that real good impact. So there, I think that's great. But as far as like ones that, and this is coming from someone who's put in, I've platinumed Elden Ring twice, right? Both on PC and PlayStation 5. So, I'm a big fan of the games. But, when I think about a combat system that I really want to like get, dive into, it's more about the build craft, right? Like the creative things you can do with gear and special moves and stuff like that in the Souls games for me. Whereas like, if I want to sit down with a meaty combat system, I want to play a fighting game, or I want to, jump into a Bayonetta, right? I want combos. I want input strings, right? Where I got to memorize, an order of operations to my inputs, and and to me, there's something fundamentally different in a Souls game, which again, still fantastic, but it's the same thing. You might argue like there's a combat like back to Smash Brothers, right? Totally different feel to playing a Street Fighter, right, or a Tekken or something like that. So I love them. I rank those games very highly, but as far as favorite combat systems, they're not. That's not what brings me back to those games.
Sure. No, that's fair. It's kind of like the feeling of doing long division on the fly versus just doing some calculations on the graphing calculator. Yeah. Just kind of different types of math, and but a little more satisfying for one or the other. You're much more into JRPGs than I am. Kind of what? That's a wholly different combat system, like more strategy, more menu based.
Yeah. I almost came in with some of those, just because I think it's a genre that has, when we talk about like iteration in combat, like that's a genre that I think has been kind of at the forefront for a lot of gaming's history, right? I mean, from the early days of the Dragon Quest and Final Fantasies, up to current day with, just Expedition 33 last year, right? Which kind of blew people's minds with doing stuff that a lot of other RPGs have done in the past, but in a way that felt fresh, right? That pulled from, like you said, the Souls games, right? With their heavy parry system and stuff like that. I think those ones are really cool because, similar to the Souls games, they offer more of like a tactical element where you're thinking about build craft and how that plays into your combat style, right? In the combat system. And I like that a lot about those is, that a lot of those games offer you the opportunity to, skim by with bare minimum knowledge, right? Or completely break the game if you take the time to understand the systems and how they work, right? I remember beating Expedition 33's, at the time before they nerfed some of the builds you could do, beating the hardest boss in that game with a single hit, right? Because the game allows you to do that. It just allows you to, dig into the combat system and really get a feel for it. And kind of master it, if you will, which I think is really cool. Something that a lot of games don't kind of offer, but RPGs tend to really encourage, I think.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I think there's, like I've talked here before, like I've just struggled with JRPGs. Like I think there is a dig into the system mindset I need to get into that I think will help me click with them. Like in it, like Balatro has no combat in it, but that like kind of how do you combo this to break it in a way that and this is kind of a different approach to solving a problem, in which case like you're solving the problem of you got to beat bad guys. And so I haven't figured out how to really kind of make that click for JRPGs for me.
Balatro is pure combat, just start to finish. That's all you're doing the entire time. Is every move is combat.
Fighting for your life. Yeah. Maybe every game is just combat.
Every game is combat, pretty much. Yeah, even the story heavy games are combat. You're always fighting for your life some way or another.
You come into an encounter, you gotta spar with your words.
I mean, Mario Kart, right? That is brutal combat. That is.
Yes. Man, weapons of mass destruction in that game too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our time here is short, but before we go, what is like the single best combat maneuver in a video game for you?
It's the Izuna drop. It's Ryu Hayabusa's Izuna drop from the Ninja Gaiden series. It's just a
Nice.
classic. It's been around for decades at this point. It is his signature move. And when you see it, when he throws the enemy up in the air, grabs them, corkscrews them into the ground head first. It's just
Yes.
it's a
Oh man.
satisfying move to see every time it's pulled off. I never get sick of it.
that's that's actually my on my side too. Is like I love it when you like throw a sword up and come down like
Hmm.
Ike's up special in Super Smash Brothers, or
Yeah,
Red Steel 2 has uh this move you get early on where you like launch a guy into the air, you jump up after him and just smash him down to the ground, and it's all in first person
beautiful.
using the Wii remote. I
It's
love
beautiful.
the video game logic of make a guy go up and then bring him down to the ground hard.
Yep, it's
It's,
great. It's a classic for a reason. It's been around forever and it's not going anywhere.
yes. Oh man, what a good video game move. We're in the same wavelength here. Oh man, that should be I figured out an episode where just like all instances of this kind of move.
Oh man, hey, dude, it's everywhere. I guarantee you, if we sat down and thought about it, we could come up with an hour long list of just satisfying launch them up and knock them down.
Yes, up and down. Well, Matthew, as we wrap up here, one name, one game. What are you playing?
Right now, I'm actually deep into Xenosaga series. I'm
Nice.
replaying those. I never finished the series back in the day, so I'm currently about 2/3 of the way through the final entry, Xenosaga 3. So playing that back on PlayStation 2, really enjoying my time with that.
Nice. Very cool. I have hooked my steering wheel back up. I've launched a career mode in F123.
Yes,
A long, uh, unexpected break in the Formula One calendar. And so I'm filling it in with building my own team.
I love it. That's perfect. I just got a wheel myself.
Nice.
I'm waiting for the new Forza. That looks like it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
a jam. That's gonna be great.
Oh, yes. Good stuff. Well, Matthew, thank you for joining me. Where else are you out on the internet if you
You
want to be
can find
found?
me over on I guess it's X now at Zero Parse. That's mostly where I'm at. I'm on Blue Sky, but I don't use it too much. So for the most part, on the occasional episode of Quick Play and a few
Yeah,
other
yeah.
places, but for the most part, yeah, over there on X.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for listening in. You can follow us on the major podcasting services or on YouTube. You can press all the good buttons there if you enjoyed this conversation. Quick Play is just one small part of the Playwell Network, which includes shows like Retronym. It's a short form podcast from Wesley Ray, all the ways we think and approach video games. A link to Retronym and other Playwell Network shows can be found at playwellnetwork.com. But you can find Quick Play on the proper socials at Quick Play Pod, and let us know what is the best combat system. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you. Bye.